Daniel stood near the fire, listening to the wind hit the walls of his old cabin. Snow moved across the frozen land like white smoke. Night on the outer colony was always cold, dark, and silent. No one visited this place. No one wanted to.
Please,
That was why the
Daniel, you
knock
have
on the
to
door
save
felt
them.
wrong.
I will,
Three
Lyra.
slow
We have
knocks.
to move now.
Daniel turned his head and stayed still. His hand moved to the
Come on,
old
get
blaster
inside.
hanging beside
Hurry,
the fireplace.
Daniel, the door!
He had lived alone for many years. On a world like
sealed.
this,
We're okay.
fear kept people alive. The knock came again. He walked to the door with quiet steps. The metal floor creaked under his boots. He opened the lock, but kept one hand on the weapon. Then he pulled the door open. Freezing wind rushed inside. At first, he saw only snow. Then a figure stood in front of him. It was a woman, but not human. She was tall and thin, with pale silver skin. Long white hair fell over her shoulders, wet with snow. Her blue eyes glowed softly in the dark. She looked weak, like she had not eaten for days. In her arms, she held a small child wrapped in torn cloth. Another child stood beside her leg, shaking from the cold.
Don't be
Both
afraid,
children
Senna.
had silver skin
Everything
and
is
glowing
going to
eyes.
be fine.
The woman looked
I
at
won't let
Daniel with
anything
fear
happen to
and
you.
shame. "I will warm your bed, human," she said in a weak voice. "If you let my children live." Daniel said nothing. He had heard many strange things in war. He had seen many desperate people, but never this. The child beside her almost fell. Daniel moved fast and caught the little boy before he hit the ice. The boy was burning with fever. Daniel looked back at the woman. "Get inside," he said. She did not move. Maybe
Take
she
it,
thought
Lyra.
it was a trick.
Protect them.
"I said get inside," Daniel repeated. The woman stepped in slowly. The second child stayed close to her side. Daniel shut the door, and the cabin became warm again. The little girl looked around the room with wide eyes. She had never seen a human home before. Daniel placed the sick boy near the fire and covered him with a blanket. Then he brought water and dried food from a shelf. The woman stared at the food like it was treasure. "Eat," Daniel said. She gave the food to the children first. Only after they started eating did she touch her own plate. Daniel noticed that. A mother first.
When that door
Even
opens,
now,
aim for the
He sat
center
across
mass.
from them
Don't
and
hesitate.
watched carefully.
I won't. Just
"What
be
is your
ready.
name?" he asked. The woman lowered her eyes.
You have to tell me
Lyra.
the truth, Lyra.
"And
Who
the
are
children?"
they?
She
They are
touched
not
the
who
little
you
girl's
think they are,
head.
Daniel.
"Sina."
They are the last of
Then
the
she
royal
looked at the boy
bloodline.
by the fire.
The royal line didn't
Kale.
end, Daniel. They
Daniel
encoded their
nodded.
lineage into the star map
"Who is
itself.
chasing you?"
See this red
Lyra's
nebula?
hands
That's
shook.
where they went.
She did
we
not
have to
answer.
follow it.
Daniel's face became hard. "No one comes to this zone by accident. You crossed 10 kilometers of frozen death with 2 children.
Be safe, my
Someone
love.
is
The
behind you."
resistance needs you down there.
Lyra looked toward the
I'm ready.
door as if she could see through it. "They killed my husband," she whispered.
Get to
"They
the
burned
hatch,
our
move!"
home. They want my children. Why?"
Daniel, hurry!
Again,
Get
silence.
down here. Let's
Daniel
go.
stood and walked to the small window. Outside, snow covered everything. Then he saw a red light move between the trees, then another. His eyes narrowed, not stars, drones. He turned back fast. "How many are after you?" Lyra's face lost all color. "Too many." A loud beep came from the wall panel. Motion alert. South side, then east side, then west. Daniel cursed under his breath. They were surrounded. The little girl began to cry quietly. The sick boy opened his eyes and coughed. Lyra stood up in panic. "We must
Bravo,
run."
Daniel.
"No," Daniel
valiant
said.
effort.
He moved to a locked
But it
metal
ends
box
here.
under the table and opened it. Inside were weapons, ammo cells, and old military gear. Lyra stared at him in shock. Who was this lonely human? Daniel loaded the blaster, then handed Lyra a small pistol. She stepped back. "I cannot fight." "You can learn fast," he said. Another beep sounded. Something heavy moved on the roof. Dust fell from the ceiling. The children screamed. Daniel killed the cabin lights. Darkness filled the room except for the fire. He looked at Lyra with calm eyes. "Take the children to the back room. Stay low. Do not open the door for anyone." She held the pistol with shaking hands. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Daniel checked the charge of his weapon.
Die!
"Because they came to my door." A deep voice suddenly came from outside through a speaker. "Human, hand over the widow and the royal children." Daniel froze for 1 second. Royal children? He slowly looked toward Lyra. She had been hiding more than fear. The speaker spoke again. "Open the door or die with them." Daniel's jaw tightened. Out Outside, red lights moved closer through the snow. Inside, two children held their mother in terror. And in the middle of the cabin, the old soldier smiled for the first time in years. "Big mistake," he said softly. The frozen cabin stood alone under the stormy night sky. Snow hit the walls like sharp sand. Wind howled across the empty land. Outside, red lights moved slowly through the trees, closing in from every side. Inside, the room was dark except for the fire. Daniel stood near the front door with his blaster ready. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He had heard many threats before. Most men shouted when they were afraid. Truly dangerous enemies spoke quietly. The voice outside spoke again through the metal speaker. "Human, this is your final warning. Hand over the widow and the royal children." Lyra gasped softly in the back room.
We made it.
The little girl, Sina,
Is
held
it really
her mother's
over?
arm.
Yes, kid.
Kale was
He
awakening,
won! He
weak from
won!
fever, but
Come
trying
on,
not to cry.
quickly!
Daniel did not answer. He moved to the side window and lifted the corner of the curtain. 5 figures. No, 7. Tall, armored shapes stood in the snow. Their suits glowed with red lines. Long rifles were pointed at the cabin. Above them, 2 drones floated in
Keep
silence.
pushing. We're nearly clear of the ridge.
Professionals.
The ships are
Daniel
coming.
stepped
We can't
back
stop
and looked
now.
at Lyra. "Royal children?" he asked. Lyra lowered her head. She looked ashamed. "I wanted shelter first," she said quietly. "Truth later."
He needs
That
the
truth
outpost,
just brought an
Daniel.
army
it's
to
the only
my
chance
door.
he has.
"They
We
are
have to go
not an
now.
army," she
All right.
whispered.
Let's
"They are
move."
hunters." The speaker outside crackled. "We know you are armed, human, but this is not your war." Daniel smiled faintly. "That is where you are wrong." He pressed
Was
a
this
switch
one
on the
of ours?
wall.
It looks
Old steel
massive.
shutters
It
slammed
was.
over the windows. The
But
cabin
even the
lights
biggest
turned
guns
red.
can't stop
Defense
people determined
mode.
to protect their home.
The little girl jumped in fear. Daniel knelt in front of her. "It is only noise," he said. "Stay with your mother." Sina stared at him with glowing
Get down,
blue
behind the
eyes.
ridge, now!
Then she gave a small nod. Kyle coughed hard. Daniel touched the boy's forehead. Still hot. No time. A blast hit the front wall. The whole cabin shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra covered the children with her
Keep
body.
moving. We're
"They
almost
will
there.
break in."
Don't
she
stop.
cried.
Run!
"Only if I allow it," Daniel said. He walked to the kitchen shelf and pulled it aside. Behind it was a hidden control panel. Lyra stared in shock.
It's open.
The
We need to
lonely
get inside
cabin
now.
was not just a home. It was a bunker.
Power stabilized.
Daniel
We're
pressed
secure for
3
now.
buttons.
It's freezing,
Outside,
Daniel.
the snow
we have to find
exploded.
heat.
I know.
2 hidden mines
Sina,
burst
check
under
the
the nearest
environmental
attackers.
controls.
One
It's
hunter
working,
flew
Kyle.
backward into the
The
storm.
readings are stabilizing.
Another dropped to the
You're gonna
ground
be just
screaming.
fine.
The drones turned fast, searching for targets. Daniel fired through a narrow
you fix her,
gun port
Daniel?
in the wall.
We'll patch her up, good
One
as you're up,
drone
good as
burst
new.
into sparks
Thank
and
you.
crashed into the trees. The second drone rose higher. Smart machine. The speaker voice changed. No more fake politeness. "You are making a fatal mistake." Daniel fired again. The bullet missed the drone, but hit the speaker unit. Silence returned. He liked silence better. Lyra looked at him in
Inside,
disbelief.
quickly! Move now!
"Who are you?" "Retired," Daniel said. Another blast hit the cabin. This time the back wall cracked. The hunters were spreading out. They were smarter than raiders. Daniel opened the weapon box and tossed Lyra a combat knife.
It's
She
frozen.
caught it badly.
I can't get it open.
"I told you,
Hurry,
I cannot
Lyra.
fight.
They're getting closer.
You can protect your children." Her eyes changed. Fear was still there, but now anger was growing beside it. She took the knife properly. Sina moved closer to Daniel. "Are monsters outside?"
moving, don't
she
look
asked.
back.
He looked at the child.
Daniel,
"Yes."
hurry. We have
"Will
to go
they
now.
take us?" "No." He said it so simply that even Lyra believed him for 1 second. Then the roof screamed. Metal claws tore into the top panels. One hunter had climbed above them. Daniel shoved the children behind the table and fired upward. The roof exploded open. Snow poured inside. A dark armored figure dropped through the hole. It landed hard and raised an energy.
Keep moving. Don't look back.
Lyra froze.
We have to get out of
Daniel
here.
did not. He rushed forward, grabbed the attacker's arm, and slammed him into the wall. The blade cut sparks across the room. The hunter punched Daniel in the chest. Daniel stumbled back. Strong,
is this
very
possible?
strong. The hunter lunged again.
Look up there!
Before he could strike, Lyra screamed and drove the knife into the gap behind his neck armor. The figure jerked, then collapsed. Silence filled the cabin. Lyra stepped back, shaking. She stared at her bloody
Hold on,
hand.
just a moment.
Daniel
We
looked
need
at
to
her
observe
once.
it first.
You learned
It
fast.
might be unstable.
Then another sound came from outside. Heavy engines, not boots, not drones, something bigger. Red light filled the windows. Lyra's face turned pale. No.
Stay
Daniel
low
reloaded.
and don't make a sound.
What now?
We have to hide from
She
the
looked
drones.
at the broken roof, the dead hunter, and her terrified children. They sent an execution walker. A giant shadow moved past the front wall. Each step made the floor tremble.
These are the royal
Cena began to
markings.
cry. Kale
This
tried to
isn't just a
stand,
gate.
even in fever.
It's a cradle.
Daniel checked the last
cradle
ammo
for
cell
what,
in his
Lyra?
rifle. One
Running
full
out of
charge,
time, Lyra.
not
Get
enough.
that door open now.
The walker
They're right
stopped
behind me.
outside the door.
Almost there, Daniel.
A deep
It's
machine
almost
voice
open.
boomed through the storm. Property will be destroyed. Targets will be collected. The cabin lock began to melt from the outside. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then he looked at Lyra.
I can't believe
You lied
it.
to me.
It's real.
She lowered her eyes. Yes.
Keep your eyes
He
open.
nodded once and handed
We
her
don't
a
know what
second
else
weapon.
is down here.
Then start telling the truth while I kill your machine. The front door glowed because children should not pay for adult wars. A huge metallic fist smashed through the front wall. The execution walker forced one arm into the cabin, tearing wood and steel apart. Its claw reached inside, searching. Daniel slammed the hatch shut. Go! Lyra disappeared below. Daniel spun and fired at the walker's arm joints. Blue bolts struck armor, leaving only burns. Too thick. The machine grabbed the table and hurled it across the room. Daniel rolled behind the fireplace as plasma fire blasted through the cabin.
symbols have
Heat
chosen
washed
you.
over him.
You
Old
are the
reflexes
rightful
returned.
heirs.
Get
He
behind the
scanned the
pillar,
walker
Lyra. Go.
fast. Legs, vents,
quickly, stay low.
sensors, power core housing under the neck. One weak point. Very small, very far. He grabbed a coil cable from the wall and climbed the broken stairs to the loft. The machine tracked him and fired. The loft exploded. Daniel jumped through falling smoke, landed on the walker's arm, and ran toward its head. The machine shook violently. Its claw tried to grab him. Too slow. He jammed the cable into a maintenance seam and forced open the neck panel with his combat knife. Bright energy pulsed inside. There you are. He fired his blaster directly into the exposed core. For 1 second, everything went white. Then the walker screamed like metal dying. Daniel leaped clear as the machine staggered backward and exploded outside the cabin, sending burning debris into the snow. Silence returned. Only wind remained. Daniel stood in the ruined doorway, breathing hard. Then he heard applause. Slow, calm, mocking. A tall figure stepped from the trees. Black armor, long coat, silver mask. More hunters emerged behind him. The leader, Varkesh. He looked at the destroyed walker, then at Daniel. Interesting, he said. A human veteran hiding in ice. Daniel raised his empty weapon. Varkesh tilted his head. You cannot win. Hand me the heirs, and I may let the mother live. Daniel dropped the empty rifle and drew a sidearm. You talk too much. Varkesh laughed softly. Then listen carefully. By sunrise, your home burns, your body freezes, and the children belong to me. Daniel glanced once at the hidden hatch beneath the rug, then back at the hunters. Bad plan, he said. From under the floor, Lyra heard gunfire begin again. Gunfire exploded outside the ruined cabin. Blue bolts cut through the storm. Red beams answered from the trees. Snow rose in clouds as energy shots tore the frozen ground apart. Below the floor, inside the narrow tunnel, Lyra covered the children with her body. Each blast made dust fall from the ceiling. Senna held the flashlight with both hands. Kale, still weak with fever, listened with wide eyes. Is he alone? Senna whispered. Lyra wanted to lie, but she could not. Yes. The little girl looked upward into the darkness above them. Then why do they sound afraid? Lyra had no answer. Outside, Daniel moved through the smoke and broken walls of the cabin like a ghost. He fired once from the doorway, then vanished before the hunters returned fire. Varkesh narrowed his eyes. Spread out, he ordered. Flush him from cover. 3 hunters advanced left. 2
Daniel,
moved
look
right.
at the elevation
1
changes
climbed onto
here.
the remains of the roof. They were trained, careful, disciplined. But this was Daniel's ground. The hunter on the roof took 1 step too far. The broken metal beneath him collapsed. He dropped through the ruins and landed on an armed trap mine hidden under the floorboards. The explosion threw fire and steel into the air. 2 hunters turned toward the blast. Daniel was already behind them. He struck the first in the neck joint with a combat blade. The second raised a rifle too slowly. Daniel grabbed the barrel, twisted it upward, and fired the man's own weapon into his chest. Both bodies fell into the snow. Varkesh did not panic. He smiled behind his silver mask. So the stories were true, he said softly.
By the
Humans
stars,
become
look at
dangerous
this.
when
It's
cornered.
magnificent.
Daniel
been waiting
fired
here
from
for
behind a rock
centuries.
wall. The shot hit
Are we
Varkesh's
really
shoulder
going
plate and
inside?
sparked away.
We have to keep moving.
Strong armor. Good to know. The remaining hunters rushed together, trying to
Stay with me,
overwhelm him
kids.
with numbers.
Hold on.
Daniel ran toward the fuel shed beside the cabin.
That.
The hunters followed.
Huge.
Bad
We made
choice.
it. We made
He
it.
kicked open the shed
Temple is
door and
real.
slid behind stacked containers. Red beams sliced through the wood walls. One beam nearly hit his head. Close. He grabbed a flare cell and threw it outside. The hunters fired at the moving light. Daniel shot the fuel line. The shed erupted in a tower of fire.
Stay
The
alert.
blast rolled across the
We don't know what's
snowfield and knocked
inside.
3 hunters flat. Burning debris rained through the storm.
It's humans.
From the tunnel
They
below,
carved us right
the
next to
children
them.
felt the ground
Legends
shake.
were true.
Kale coughed and
Legends
sat
were
up
true.
straighter. "He is winning," he said. Lyra listened to the chaos above. No fear in his voice, no panic, only movement,
Get down.
only control.
Behind the pillar now.
She had seen royal
Daniel,
guards,
what's
mercenaries,
Just
palace
stay with me.
soldiers. None fought like this human. Outside, only 2 hunters remained standing beside Varkesh. Daniel stepped from the flames, coat smoking, face marked with ash. His blaster was empty. He drew another weapon from his back, an old rail carbine. Heavy,
Incoming fire.
silent,
Get down. The walkers
powerful.
are hit. Take cover
Varkesh
behind the
raised a
ridge.
hand. Wait.
Move.
The 2 hunters stopped. The masked leader stepped forward through the falling snow. "I offer respect, human. Walk away now. This is not your bloodline, not your species, not your future." Daniel aimed the carbine. "You chased children through a storm." Varkesh spread his hands. "They are keys, not children." Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. "That was your second mistake." The carbine thundered. One hunter behind Varkesh dropped instantly. The second charged in rage. Daniel fired again.
Take cover.
The shot
Get
punched
down
through the
now!
man's chest and threw him backward across the ice. Now only Varkesh remained. The storm grew louder around them. Burning wreckage glowed behind the cabin. The masked hunter slowly drew a long energy spear from his back. Blue light ran along its edge. Daniel checked the carbine. No charge left. Of course. He tossed it aside and drew his knife. Varkesh laughed. "You bring steel against plasma?" Daniel rolled his shoulders. "I bring experience." Then they moved. Varkesh struck first, spear flashing like lightning. Daniel dodged left. The blade cut his sleeve.
All
Fast.
units,
Very
prepare for
fast.
orbital drop.
The second strike
Secure
hit the
the
ground and
perimeter.
melted ice into steam. Daniel stepped inside the next swing and punched Varkesh in the throat armor. The masked leader staggered back but recovered instantly. He spun low. The spear shaft hit Daniel's leg and dropped him to one knee. Pain shot through his body. Varkesh aimed the glowing tip at his chest. Enough. A gunshot cracked from the tunnel entrance. Varkesh turned sharply. Lyra stood there, holding the small pistol with shaking hands. She had left the children hidden below. The shot had missed, but it changed everything. Daniel grabbed the spear shaft, yanked hard, and pulled Varkesh forward. Then he drove the knife into the gap beneath the hunter's arm. Varkesh hissed in pain and slammed his helmet into Daniel's face. Both men fell apart into the snow. Lyra ran toward them. Varkesh rose first, wounded but alive. He looked at Lyra with hatred. "You should have died with your husband." He lunged. Daniel tackled him sideways. The spear flew into the darkness. The 2 men crashed into the burning wreckage of the cabin wall. Flames climbed around them. Daniel struck again and again. Varkesh answered with brutal blows to the ribs. Then Daniel saw the mask lock. One weak point. He grabbed the silver faceplate and tore it free. Underneath was a scarred face, pale eyes full of rage. Varkesh screamed and reached for a sidearm. Lyra fired first. This time, she did not miss. The blast hit Varkesh in the chest. He froze, stared at them both, then collapsed into the snow. Silence returned. Only wind, only fire. Daniel stood slowly, breathing hard. Lyra lowered the pistol.
He defended
Her hands
the
still
heirs when
shook,
the galaxy needed
but
him
not from
most.
fear anymore,
And through his courage,
from what she had become.
hope was restored.
She
across
looked at the ruined
stars.
cabin. There is nothing left. Daniel glanced at the burning walls, the dead hunters, the broken sky above. Then he looked toward the white mountains far beyond the trees. There is shelter there. Kale and Senna climbed from the tunnel and ran to them.
Just like we practiced.
Senna hugged
Low
Daniel's
stance,
leg.
Eyes forward.
Kale looked at the fallen hunters. Are they
feel it,
gone?
Dad.
Daniel picked up his coat and reloaded the last pistol. No, he said. These were only the first wave. Far above the clouds, new red lights appeared in the night sky. Ships. The cabin burned behind them like a dying star. Flames rose into the dark sky. Smoke mixed with falling snow. The warm light faded with every step they took into the wilderness. Daniel did not look back. He carried Kale on his shoulders and led the way through the white storm.
We are ready.
Lyra walked beside him, holding Senna's hand. The little girl was tired, but she refused to complain. Above them, red lights moved through the clouds. Enemy ships, searching. We need cover, Daniel said. There is none out here, Lyra replied. There is always cover. He changed direction and led them into a narrow valley of black stone. High cliffs rose on both sides, blocking wind and hiding them from the sky. For the first time in hours, they could hear their own breathing. Kale coughed weakly. Daniel lowered him carefully and touched the boy's forehead. Still hot. He needs medicine, Lyra said. I know. There is an old medical outpost east of the glacier, she said, abandoned years ago. Daniel looked at the cliffs, then the sky. Then we move east. They walked until dawn. The storm slowly weakened. Pale light spread across the frozen land. Ice fields shined like silver glass. Broken machines from old wars lay half buried in the snow.
Confirmed kill.
Senna pointed
They're
at one
breaking
giant
apart.
metal skeleton. What is that? Daniel glanced at it. A tank. Did you break it? Lyra almost smiled. Daniel answered without emotion. Yes. Senna looked at him with wonder after that. By midday, they reached a frozen river. The ice looked thick, but Daniel
It's all right,
knelt
you're
and
safe
listened
now.
with one hand on the surface. Cracks below, moving water. Too risky.
Shadow creatures
We
breached
go
the
around,
perimeter in
he
Sector
said.
4. The core
A
is
sound came
failing.
from above.
How did they
Sharp,
bypass the energy
mechanical,
shield?
We just
drone.
reinforced it.
Daniel
That
looked
door
up.
won't hold
A
much
small
longer.
scout machine flew over the
knew this
cliffs
was
and
coming.
stopped in the
Ready your
air.
weapon.
Its red eye scanned the river. It saw them.
Fall back to the
Down!
blast doors.
Daniel
Move.
shouted. They dropped behind a ridge as blaster fire hit
We're
the
getting
ice.
overrun,
The
Lyra.
frozen river exploded into flying shards. Kale cried out. Senna covered her ears. Daniel fired twice from cover. The drone dodged the first shot. The second hit its sensor eye. It spun wildly and crashed into the river, breaking through the ice into dark water below. But the damage was done. It sent our location, Lyra said.
The turrets are
Daniel
clearing the
nodded.
way. Move
Then we
now.
moved faster. Hours later, they found the medical outpost. It stood half buried in snow beside a cliff wall. Rust covered the doors. One antenna leaned sideways like a broken tree. Lyra stared in surprise. It still stands. For now,
safe.
Daniel said. He forced the frozen door open.
The power core is
Inside was
stable.
darkness,
We're safe.
dust, and old silence.
you. We're
The
so
place smelled of
grateful.
metal
The
and
energy
time.
fluctuations have
He
stabilized.
found emergency
We can
power
allocate
cells and
full
hit the
power
main
to the
switch.
agricultural
Lights
domes
flickered
immediately.
alive. Senna clapped softly. Kale nearly collapsed. Daniel carried the boy to an old medical bed. Screens blinked to life around them. Lyra touched one panel and gasped.
Commander
It
Daniel
still
Jackson,
works. She moved
your
quickly
actions
now,
represent
like a
the
different
very
person.
best of us.
Not a hunted widow.
behalf of the
A
colony,
trained mother who
thank
knew
you.
what to do. She scanned Kale's body,
Thousands,
mixed
maybe
medicine
tens of
from stored
thousands, more than this
supplies,
station
and gave
can
him a
handle.
warm injector
Then we adapt.
dose. The
Our
boy's
mission just
breathing
got
slowly
bigger.
eased.
Rescue fleet.
Daniel watched in
Execute jump
silence.
sequence on my mark.
You know
Lyra,
medicine.
report
I was not
status.
always hiding, she said. For a
Ready,
moment,
Commander.
neither spoke. Then Senna walked to Daniel and
Don't
held up a
worry,
torn
little ones.
cloth doll.
Everything
Its
is
head
going
was
to be
missing.
all right.
Can you fix her?
We will get through
Daniel
this
looked at the
together.
toy as if it were a weapon. No. Senna's face fell. He took the doll, found tape in a drawer, and repaired it badly. The head sat crooked. Senna hugged it with joy.
I see it,
You are
honey.
good at fixing.
It's
Lyra
magnificent.
laughed softly for the first
Truly a
time.
new
The
age
sound
for us
surprised
all.
everyone,
Heirs
even
Kyle
her.
and Senna.
Night came again.
We pledge
Kale
our
slept
support
with
to
less
this
fever.
restored colony
Senna slept
and the
beside him.
future of
Lyra sat
humanity.
near the window, watching snow drift
magnificent.
outside.
Are
Daniel
you
cleaned
home?
weapons under
We
a dim
made it.
lamp. You should rest, she said. So should you. I cannot.
These new routes
He kept
represent
working.
an
After a long
unprecedented era of
silence,
unity
she spoke
and
again.
prosperity for the
Why did you
Alliance.
choose exile?
We must move
Daniel's
forward
hand
together.
stopped. He did not answer at once. Because war ended, he said finally. But noise did not. Lyra studied him. A man does not hide in ice because of noise. He looked at her. A woman does not offer herself at a stranger's door unless pain is greater than pride.
All right, hold
Their
your
eyes
stance.
held for a moment.
Courage isn't the
Then
absence
alarms
of fear,
screamed through
it's
the
the
outpost.
mastery of it.
Red lights
Senna,
flashed.
excellent
Movement
form.
outside. Many targets. Daniel was already
Thank you
standing.
for giving
How
our
many
children a
exits?
father
2, Lyra said
and a
quickly.
future.
Front gate and lower cargo tunnel. He checked the screen. Thermal signatures surrounded the building. Not hunters. Too large. Too many. Shapes moved on 4 legs through the
Compassion
snow.
is the bridge
Wild
between
predators,
worlds.
drawn by
It
heat
is the
and
strength
blood.
we found,
Senna
not
woke
in
in
our
fear.
weapons,
Kale
but in
tried
our
to sit
hearts.
up. The outer
Still can't
door
believe
shook
you
with a
said that
heavy
right in front of
slam.
the council.
Then another. Metal bent
Only you
inward.
could get away
What
with
are
it,
they?
Kyle.
Senna cried.
quite funny,
Daniel
maybe.
looked at the monitor. Ice maulers. Massive beasts from the northern wastes. He handed Lyra a rifle. Take the children to the cargo tunnel. The door screamed as claws tore through steel. Lyra grabbed the children. You? I'll slow them. Another slam. The lock snapped. The first beast pushed its head through the opening. White fur, black horns, teeth like knives. It roared into the room. Daniel raised his shotgun and fired. The blast echoed through the station. The beast fell back, but 3 more shapes rushed behind it. Lyra reached the tunnel hatch, then turned. Daniel! He did not look back. Move! She took the children into the dark tunnel below. Behind her, gunfire thundered. Roars filled the station. Metal tore. And somewhere in that chaos, one human stood between her family and the jaws of the frozen wild.